Welcome to week 9 of our Samuel study series. Today we are going to be taking a look at more of a broader picture of 1st and 2nd Samuel as a whole. We otherwise would have been studying the passage of Absalom's death, but I wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit again and instead focus on some of the major themes that emerge as we wrap up the book of 2nd Samuel and what that means for us as New Testament believers. But before we really dive in, let's go ahead and grab your pen, grab your notebook, and let's get started. Before we really dive into our actual study today, I do want to just briefly recount some of the events that lead up to the very end of 2 Samuel. Following David's account with Bathsheba and Uriah, we have him approached by Nathan the prophet. He's told that he is going to face all sorts of consequences for his sin, and then we start to see the fallout of that sin. Immediately, one of his children dies. Following this, we find that there is a son named Amnon. Now, Amnon is in love with his half-sister, Tamar, and there is a horribly disturbing account where Amnon tricks his half-sister Tamar into being alone in his bedroom with him, and he rapes her. It's disgusting. I don't like it. And the author of Samuel has intentionally patterned the passage so that you see that Amnon is taking the grievous sexual sin of his father and twisting it and repeating it in a different way. I'm not saying that David committed the same sin as Amnon. What I'm saying is that a lot of the time in the Bible, children will replay the sins of their parents in different ways. So they may repeat a sexual sin in a different way. They may repeat a deceptive sin in a different way. Here, that's what's happening with Amnon. Well, Tamar has a full-blooded brother named Absalom, and Absalom is infuriated by what Amnon has done. He bides his time. He waits to see if the king will do anything, and David doesn't do anything, and this also infuriates Absalom. Eventually, he just has his servants kill Amnon at a time that would be easier to do that than normal. And then following this, Absalom gathers a following. He's popular, he's young, he's handsome, and people just like him. And so he actually ends up driving his father out of Jerusalem. He challenges the throne, and it looks like it's a successful coup. David has to flee to the wilderness, just like he did with Saul. And just like with Saul, he's being pursued for his life, this time from his own son. That would have brought us to the passage we otherwise would have been taking a look at today, where Absalom strangely gets his hair caught in a tree, and then he is finally killed. The coup is ended, the insurrection is over, and David returns to the throne, now having lost 3 children, and he is broken. He is a broken man, and he has faced the devastating consequences of his sin. And that brings us to where I really want to land today with our study. The very end of 2 Samuel doesn't really seem like a very good ending. If you read chapter 24, it kind of just abruptly ends. This has led some scholars to say, well, actually, 1 Kings 1 and 2 should be the ending of Samuel. It's not really a finished work, because that's when we actually have the end of David's life. He passes on the kingship to his son Solomon, and that seems like a better ending. But I actually stick with a lot of scholars who say, no, 2 Samuel has an ending, it's intentional, it's just a little bit hidden. If you remember back to our last video, there is a literary device used by Hebrew authors called chiasm. Whenever chiasm appears, it's not the end or the beginning of a passage that is the main idea, it's the middle. Sometimes this can take place over long stretches of writing, like multiple chapters, which is actually what's happening here in 2 Samuel. Chapters 21 through 24, which is the last chapter, make up a whole chiasm with a central idea, and that, I think, is the true ending of 2 Samuel. So let's start on the outsides. First, chapters 21 and 24, they mirror each other. Chapter 21 actually shows an account of multiple giants where David's life is threatened by these giants and he's not strong enough to defeat them. It's essentially Goliath and his children over and over. And he has to be saved. David has to be saved by different men of his army over and over again. This is highlighting David's weakness. Then we get to chapter 24. David takes a census of the land. Now, this was seen as foolish. It's happened elsewhere, and where this happens, censuses are seen as a way of trying to measure your strength, trying to get a better idea of how protected you are, a better idea of national security. And this is something that God did not want David to do. And so God's wrath is kindled, there's a plague on the land, and it's because of the intervention of a prophet and just a regular citizen of Israel that David and the kingdom are spared. So we have chapter 21, David is shown as a weak person who needs saving. Chapter 24 shows David as a foolish person who needs saving. This is showing a different image of David than we've really seen elsewhere in 1st and 2nd Samuel. It is highlighting the weakness of David, showing us once again that he is not the Messiah, that he is a normal human being, and that he isn't always perfect. And then within chapters 21 and 24 is where we really get to the heart of all of Samuel. It's wrapped up here in 2 songs that David sings in chapters 22 and 23. Chapter 22 reflects on how David was never truly the one who saved himself. God was the one who saved him. In every single situation where it seemed like he was surrounded by waters, the armies were around him, there was no way out, God swooped down and saved him, plucked him up, and saved his life. He's the one who defeated David's enemies, not David or his army. This gives us a bit of a clue on what's going on in these outside passages of 21 and 24. It's highlighting David isn't the one who is the victorious king. No one can be the victorious king apart from Yahweh. Yahweh is the one who delivers. Yahweh is the one who sustains. Yahweh is the one that preserves and protects. Also tucked in chapter 22, we see a lot of the themes that go back all the way to 1 Samuel chapter 2 with Hannah's prayer. In Hannah's song, she highlights the theme of power reversals, the anointed one, and the victorious king. Here, David talks about the power reversals that God has done throughout his life. God brings up the weak, the humble, the people that you wouldn't expect, but he lowers the proud. He also reflects on how God has given him victory even in the midst of hopeless situations. And that brings us to chapter 23. There's actually a passage that I would really love to read from chapter 23. It reflects on the Messiah and the messianic promise where God made his covenant with David. So let me go ahead and read that. Now these are the last words of David. David, the son of Jesse, declares, "The man who was raised on high, the anointed of God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel declares, the Spirit of the Lord spoke through me, and his word was on my tongue. The God of Israel said it. The rock of Israel spoke it to me. He who rules over mankind righteously, who rules in the fear of God, is like the light of the morning when the sun rises, a morning without clouds, when the fresh grass springs out of the earth, from sunshine after rain. Is my house not indeed so with God? For he has made an everlasting covenant with me, properly ordered in all things and secured. For will he not indeed make all my salvation and all my delight grow?" This passage is reflecting on the kind of rule that the Messiah will bring. The one who is righteous, the one who listens to God, the one who leads the way God intended a king to rule. His rule is like a morning where the sun rises without any clouds on the grass. It's beautiful imagery. He later talks about how the worthless are like thorns and thistles that get burned up by the righteous one's rule. And so when David reflects on this, I think we get to the heart of the chiasm in chapters 21 through 24. 2 Samuel leaves us with the anticipation. We have what we thought was the greatest king of Israel on the throne. And he's telling us, I am not the greatest one. There are stories all around showing us that he is a weak and sometimes foolish king, someone who can't even save himself. And David is saying, there is someone else coming. It's been promised to me. It's been promised to my family. God will see it through. There is a king coming, and one day he will rule, and his rule will be like the sun rising without clouds on a bright morning. It's beautiful imagery, especially after the violent and sometimes disturbing stories found in 1st and 2nd Samuel. It seems like the king experiment has failed. Saul miserably failed. Even David failed in the end to be the kind of king that he describes here in 2 Samuel chapter 23. But this, I would suggest, is the ending to 2 Samuel. It concludes the themes that appeared first in Hannah's song. It wraps up David's life with him anticipating a future king. It doesn't end with his death. It doesn't end with him passing off the crown. That's 1 Kings. 2 Samuel, or Samuel, ends with us awaiting the day when God will finally send the Messiah and we will live in a beautiful world without the wicked and their influence. Well, that brings us to the end of our Samuel study series. It has truly been a blessing and a joy and an honor to be able to teach and share everything that I have been learning as well. I have linked all sorts of resources in these videos that can teach you much more than I can offer in these videos, and they will lead you down all sorts of different paths in your own study journeys. And I pray that those would be blessed as you continue to search and seek God through His Word. I would highly encourage, and I also ask that you would take some time to fill out a survey that reflects on the series so far and what your thoughts were on it. If I was ever to do anything like this again, I would want to make sure that it's the best format and also the best type of content that I can offer. That link to the survey is in the description of this video. If you have it full screen, go ahead and exit out of full screen. You'll see right underneath the video box that there is a place, a little text box. You can say read more. There's going to be a blue link that says click this here for the survey, and it's going to take you to a new page. You'll be able to fill it out. If you'd like, you can keep it anonymous. I will also make it so if you'd like, you can share your name. But that's going to help me just know if this is something that people would like to have more of, or if this was just a one-time thing, and if we will move on and find different ways to explore and study together. But that would be great. If you could do that, it would encourage me, and I would really appreciate it. Feel free to go back to any of these other videos that I've made and comment in the different videos. I will do my best to respond and reply if you have any questions. But that's all for this series. Thank you so much for watching.